What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Tuesday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris. What a wild slate that was yesterday. It's always NBA All-Star break where you need almost 300 points to win GPPs. It's just insane. Like, there was, I think, 4 hat tricks, and like Minnesota one had 2 of them. Sean Monahan had a natural hat. McCann almost had a hat trick. There were just a ton of high scores. It's weird because like the winning GPP in the 15, it was like 265, but like min cash was like 90, which means like how concentrated the scoring was on some of those lines, and it was all in that Vancouver Minnesota game. That was a wild game. But yeah, tonight is a new night, 8-game slate, massive GPPs on both sites. This is the big on DraftKings. The 555 is the biggest prize pool DraftKings has ever ran for NHL, including live finals. So that's exciting. Joining me, as always, Slim Cliffy. You ready to roll tonight?
Yeah, I am. One of the nice things about yesterday's slate was using the Buffalo Sabres. You knew you were dead about an hour into the slate, so I had pretty much the entire day off from worrying about DFS. That game was insane. It reminded me of a game last season. It actually included Minnesota and Los Angeles. It was like the second or third game of the season. 7-6. I think Los Angeles scored 4 or 5 goals in the third period. And it's just weird that it was Minnesota in back-to-back seasons. But just want to shout out Jetty Ray Clayton had a nice night last night. Finished second in the $4. He had Minnesota, paired them with Arizona. Bukestad got the 2 goals, so that was just enough. Jeremy Swayman had a really big game for Boston, so congrats to him. Our boss, Jake Hardy, took down the Arizona Showdown slate as well for 5K, I believe. So he had a pretty good night. Hopefully we can get some more winners. Hopefully somebody can take down that big one on DraftKings here on this 8-gamer.
Yeah, there's a $20 50K to first to 555, 200K to first to 40 with 10K to first. Jake finished third also in the 15 yesterday. His defenseman let him down and got anything from his D-man who would have chipped that. He got passed by the same guy with 2 different lineups late. But, that's sometimes the thin margins of MME. We should probably get in this slate because if I'm late picking up Avery Goat from school, he will throw a fit. Literally. And he has his own YouTube channel now. You should subscribe to him. I'll drop it in the YouTube chat. It's ridiculous. But anyway, just wanted to say thank you for all the affiliate link support, the signups, the super chats. You guys have been incredible. It really it obviously supports us directly, and it helps us bring you all that free stuff. Cliffy's article, free to read today, stochastic.com/NHL. There's some nice little gems in there, so make sure to go read that. But yeah, if you're interested in going premium, click that link the bot just put into the chat, and you can pick your membership, and we'll go about our day. We'll have a little read about that in a little bit. Let's get into the slate. However, Ottawa Senators, they 2.6 total heading into Florida. The Panthers have a 4 total. Ottawa played last night. They beat the Lightning, which I didn't see. I mean, I guess anything can happen in hockey. The Senators have looked atrocious since, Jacques Martins has taken over. Lightning didn't look very good last night outside of the first few minutes, but they're back in action in Miami. It's a pretty far drive. Maybe they took a plane. Who knows? But it doesn't really matter. Florida going with Reinhart, Verhaeghe, Barkov, Tkachuk, Bennett, Cousins, Erod, Lundell, Luostarinen. I'm going to, we don't know exactly the Ottawa lines, but they won last night, so they're probably going to keep them the same. Stützle, Drew, Matty Joseph, Tkachuk, Pinto, Tarasenko, Norris, Batherson, Grieg. Now, back-to-back on the road for Ottawa. This is a very, very good 5-on-5 and power play spot for the Panthers. The top line, Reinhart, Verhaeghe, Barkov, fully correlated. They're coming in with positive leverage, 10% projected, which is not that bad for an 8-game slate. The one thing I will say, you can power play stack, but if you're going with Florida 1 and Montour, you should find a way to get Brady or Matt Tkachuk in there, whether you just full 5-man power play stack them, you leave off Reinhart, you leave off Verhaeghe. I think if you're going to power play stack with Montour, you're probably going to want to have Tkachuk. So if I was adding a fourth person into that power play stack, I would probably do Tkachuk over Montour. It is a very good 5-on-5 matchup, though. So going full Florida 1, completely fine. I don't particularly love full Florida 2. You could go 2-man of like Bennett, Tkachuk. I think that's fine. The third line for Florida is pretty interesting too, especially because they're only 10-6, but they do have good numbers together. They are coming in negatively leveraged, but any line that cheap will be negatively leveraged. Getting the depth of of Ottawa is always a bonus. And Lundell and Erod and Luosterainen have been pretty well together. There isn't a giant need for a line that cheap tonight unless you're doing like a Colorado power play stack. You go back to Minnesota, you do some sort of other power play stack, but that is something to keep in mind if you are looking for depth lines. On the Ottawa side, the thing is, like, Florida takes a ton of penalties. They have a good penalty kill, but they take a ton of penalties. The problem here is Ottawa has split power play units and they both suck. If they loaded one unit, I would be interested in playing that unit. But like, they split time, they split units, they've both been bad. So like, while it's not the best power play matchup, they're gonna get a bunch of them. But like, I don't love Ottawa here. If anything, I'd go to the Pinto, Tkachuk, Tarasenko line, but in 1 to 3, I'm not prioritizing them.
Yeah, I want to start on the Ottawa side first because I think this is an interesting spot for the Sens because, as you mentioned, Florida is, almost always has pretty much all season been one of the most penalized teams in the league. Just going back to Christmas, they are the most penalized team in the league, at least by minor penalties taken per game. They're at 4.9. League average is at about 3.5. And there are only 3 teams above 4. So, like, they are clearly far and away the most penalized team. It's basically been them and Anaheim basically all season long. Now, they do have a very good penalty kill, but there are, just look at Vancouver yesterday. Vancouver has had a much improved penalty kill. It's not been awful this season, and they got, their brains beat in by Minnesota. That same Minnesota team did something similar to Florida a couple months ago where they scored, I think, 4 power play goals in one game against Florida. So, like, when you take that many penalties, even if you're very good at killing them off, hockey is, like you said earlier, hockey is just a fairly random game, and once in a while, a team will pounce on that. The problem is I don't know what Ottawa is doing with their power play. Jake Sanderson, I like him as a player. I think he's a very good player, and he's going to just keep getting even better. Maybe in 2 or 3 years, he can run a top power play unit. He can't do that right now. Like, the top power play for unit for Ottawa in 90 minutes together has 7 goals. That's not good. Like, you'll see 5-on-5 lines score that much, let alone on the power play. And it's not just bad luck or whatever either. Like, shooting between 8-9% is a little low. But even if they're shooting 12%, they would, or 13%, they'd still be well below average as a power play unit. I don't know. This is just more Josh Norris hate. Like, get Josh Norris off the goddamn power play is one thing. The other is replacing with Thomas Chabot. But until they make those changes, it's like, how can you rely on that? That's why I'm kind of struggling getting to Ottawa here, despite there being absolutely no ownership. And there is absolutely no ownership on them. Like, that Tkachuk, Pinto, Tarasenko line, 0.3% ownership, 4.5% top 2 stack percentage. If I was playing 150 lineups, I probably would have a couple of those in there. It is a brutal matchup for them, but at 18,400, it's not like you need 4 goals or something like that. A couple goals with a couple shot bonuses, or somebody lucks into a block bonus, like, then you're laughing on DraftKings. So I don't hate that Tkachuk line. I just think it's not that best suited for like single entry stuff. I think 150 or whatever would be better, but they'll get that Barkov matchup, and that makes it a pretty bad matchup at 5-on-5. Tough matchup on the power play, especially with how their power play has been going. So not super stoked on that. I wouldn't have a real problem going back to the Stutzler-Giroux line. Like, that was the line that did all the damage last night. They've been really good in a near 150-minute sample this season. 3.2 expected goals per 60, 1.9 against. 5 actual goals per 60. So they're definitely riding a little bit hot, but they're getting a lot of ice time. Like Giroux and Stützle are often over 20 minutes a night. Like this is pretty much the team's top line. They're not getting much ownership either. They're only at 0.1% ownership, 1.1% top 2 stack. Like I think there should be some interest there. And, Stützle's on the second power play unit. The second power play unit might actually be better, at this point, because Sanderson's just not doing anything on the top unit. So I think they're playable. But again, I think Ottawa, if I was playing 150 lineups, I would definitely be getting some Ottawa in because, even if Florida just has like 2 bad penalty killing games a season, like those 2 games could result in 3 power play goals against or more. And if that happens, if you play enough lineups, it'll happen eventually. So I don't mind Ottawa, but I definitely do like the Florida side better. I wrote up Carter Verhaeghe in the picks article today. The guy is 10th in the league in overall goals and 5th in the league in goals per 60 minutes, like 5th in the league. He's just been tremendous offensively. Sam Reinhart going through a little bit of a cold spell. That'll happen when you're relying on 28% shooting. But that line has been really, really good since they've been assembled. 3.4 expected goals per 60, 1.6 against. That's what makes it such a tough matchup for Brady Tkachuk and company. Barkov's not shooting much. 44 shots, 1 goal in his last 20 games. The Ottawa Senators might be, a good remedy for that. But I still do like that line, but I agree with your point about Mac and Chuck. It's like if I'm stacking the top 6 from Florida tonight, whether it's the top line, whether it's a power play stack or whatever, I'm making sure I get Mac and Chuck in there. He's too involved in everything that they do. He's on the ice at the end of games for empty nets and things like that. You definitely want Mac and Chuck in. I do like Florida 1. You mentioned their 10% ownership, but 20.7% top 2 stack percentage. It's one of the highest on the board. I really do like Florida 1. Now, I'm with you. I wouldn't stack Florida 2. I think they see that Giroux matchup, and Giroux and Stützle have typically been very good defensively. Florida 3 is kind of interesting. Obviously, they're coming in way over-owned, 0.5% top 2 stack, 5% ownership. If you are power play stacking like Colorado, let's say, or you are power play stacking Vancouver or Minnesota, something like that, you might need lines like this. And that third line, 3.8 expected goals for, 1.7 against per 60. They should be able to just completely run over the Ottawa bottom 6. So, a 2-man of like Rodriguez and Lundell, or, Lundell and Luosterainen or something like that, I think is perfectly fine if you want to put them in with your power play stacks. But it's Florida 1 that's really attracting my attention in this game.
Agreed. Dallas Stars with a 2.9 total heading into Madison Square Garden. The Rangers have a 3.5 total. Miro Heiskanen is back tonight. He missed yesterday for the birth of his child. Congrats to the Heiskanens. Looks like Duchesne could be out. They called up my mind is going blank. What's his name?
Logan Stanko.
He's leading the AHL and everything. Yeah, Stankoven, Stanky Leg, has been called up. He's not in the player pool, which kind of sucks because his numbers in the AHL are redonkulous. But
you know what? Like I know we kind of have interest in playing him, but I'm glad that I don't have to stare down the barrel of like, do I play 40% Logan Stankoven tonight or something like that? You know what I mean? Like I'm glad I don't have to deal with that.
40% Stanky Leg seems bad on this slate. But anyway, Rangers going with Kreider, Zibanejad, Jimmy Vesey. Like, I've seen Rangers fans complain about it, but he is the guy who needs to be there until they make a trade. He is not flashy, but he's steady on both ends of the ice. And he has good numbers with Kreider and Zibanejad. So he's the guy who needs to be there. They can go out and make a trade for whomever your heart desires. But until then, he's the guy that I want on Rangers 1. Rangers 2, obviously, still ho-humming. And they are the highest top 2 stack in this game. If Stankoven plays tonight, I would imagine he slides in on that second line with Wyatt Johnson, Jamie Benn, Ty Dellandrea being the third line, and Dallas 1 being status quo. I don't have a ton of interest in Dallas here tonight. if Duchesne for some reason is in, I don't mind that second line because they'll see, that Trocheck, Panarin, Lafreniere matchup, which is fairly high event. So if anything, it would be that second line. But if Stankoven's there, like you just can't full stack that line. It's impossible because he's not in the player pool. So, I don't mind like a one-off Wyatt Johnson or something like that, or, Dallas 1 and MME. But in 1 to 3, I'm probably not prioritizing. The Dallas side, I think on the Rangers side, you can definitely full stack Rangers 1 here. They have a 3.3 top 2 stack percentage, 2.4% projected ownership. I think that's fine. I think you can leave VC on. Like I said, he's not sexy, but he gets the job done. He's much better there than, he does. He's much better defensively sound than Blake Wheeler, and the drop off in the offense will not be as much as you expect. So I do like Rangers 1 here. Obviously, Rangers 2 is fine. They've been great all season. Trocheck and Panarin have ridiculously good numbers together. Lafreniere is having a good season. So Rangers 1, Rangers 2. I think even a Rangers power play stack is fine because it is Wedgwood in net and it is back-to-back on the road for the Stars.
Yeah, I'll start with New York. I did write up the Rangers top line as one of the top stacks today. Like they are one of the mid-price stacks that's coming in with positive leverage. You mentioned VC's numbers on the top line. Like he hasn't spent a lot of time there this year, obviously because they had Lafreniere for a few games, but it's mainly like Kakko, Wheeler, those guys. But going back to last year, on the top line with Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider, that VC Zibanejad Kreider line, 44.4 shots per 60 minutes, 3.6 expected goals, 3.7 actual goals per 60 minutes in 160 minutes together. So it's not a massive sample, but that's about 15 games worth of ice time. And they were really, really productive together. And like Dallas isn't like really a defensive juggernaut. Like getting Miro Heiskanen back certainly helps. Don't get me wrong. But that top line since January 1st, the Hintz line, 2.6 expected goals against per 60. The second line with Duchesne there, their defensive numbers have really fallen off basically over the last like 2.5 months. The third line has struggled defensively basically all season long. Of late, they're closer to league average, but even league average is nothing to worry about. Like there's nothing at 5-on-5 that makes me think, don't stack against Dallas. You know what I mean? The one concern for production is that it's like a good and bad thing. Dallas doesn't take a lot of penalties, 3 minor penalties taken per game going back to Christmas. That's well below the league average. It's 3.5. The Rangers don't draw a lot of power plays either. They're slightly below league average in that sense. But the Dallas penalty kill has been atrocious. Like bottom 10 in the league over the last 8 weeks, like not good whatsoever. And, the Rangers power play has struggled at times that, they did change them up for a game or two there recently, but it's generally been a really good power play for like 3 years now. Zibanejad, Kreider, both on the top power play unit. Zibanejad starting to shoot the puck a little bit more, 15 shots in his last 5 games. That's been a big problem for him basically through the first half of the season. Kreider is Kreider. He's a guy that just lives around the net. He's a guy that can, go get us a hat trick, hopefully. But I do like that Rangers top line. They're not that expensive, as I mentioned. Coming in with positive leverage, 2.4% ownership against 3.3% top 2 stack percentage. I don't have any concerns about the 5-on-5 matchup. Dallas is a road back-to-back. Even with Heiskanen back, they're still missing Hakanpää on the blue line. They're still missing Nils Lundqvist on the blue line. Like those aren't, big popular names or anything like that, but they are regulars in the lineup that they have to take out and put in Joel Hanley, who's the number 7 and an AHL guy. So like there are still pieces missing, even if they get Heiskanen back. I do like the Rangers top line. I don't want to say like don't play the Rangers second line, but they've been kind of going through it. You know what I mean? Their last 150 minutes together, which is about 12, 13 games, 2.6 expected goals per 60 minutes. That's not very good. 2.5 goals per 60 minutes actually scored. That's not good at all either. Not for them. Panarin is at about 2.3 shots per game in that span. So, like, they're not producing a ton. Like, this is a good spot for because The Dallas penalty kill isn't that great. And, like you said, Scott Wedgwood is in net. It's a row back-to-back. So, maybe this will be the night where they get back on track. But the Rangers top line had been, Kreider's advantage at BC had been playing well. So I think I prefer them here in this matchup. On the Dallas side, I don't know, man. Like, I think this is a case where I prefer one-offs from the Dallas side over stacking, because I don't – the only reason why you would necessarily stack the Dallas top line is because they're perfectly correlated on the power play. And – sorry to say, but Shesterkin has been god awful on the penalty kill this season, even though
last season.
And last season. He's been god awful on the penalty kill. If you look at the Rangers' struggles, they're all related to save percentage. It's nothing to do with shots against, expected goals against, too many penalties, nothing like that. Shesterkin has been terrible on the PK. So in that sense, Dallas 1 would be fine, but they basically split the power play units, and they even did that yesterday with Matt Duchene out.
That top power play hasn't done anything the past week either. It's the second power play just absolutely nuking everybody.
Right, and you see that starting to factor in, like a top 2 stack percentage of only 5.4% for this line, which has been one of the best 5-on-5 lines in the league over the last couple of years, even though the last couple of months have been a slowdown. Makes me not super excited. Like Dallas 1 will probably be in your 150 mixes or whatever, but I think like a one-off Wyatt Johnston certainly makes sense. I think a one-off Jamie Benn because of the penalty kill issues for the Rangers certainly makes sense. If you want a one-off like Jason Robertson, I think that's okay as well, but I'm not super interested in stacking anything from the Dallas side here tonight.
Concur. New York Islanders with a 2.8 total. Heading into Pittsburgh, the Penguins have a 3.1 total. Obviously, Jake Gensel is out. Pittsburgh mixed up their lines. The top line, obviously, is Crosby, Rust, Raquel. Second line is Evgeny Malkin, Drew O'Connor, Matthew Phillips. If you can't find him on the ice, it's because he's 3 feet tall. Pittsburgh 3 is Riley Smith, Lars Eller, Valtteri Puustinen. Also, they kicked Malkin off the top power play unit for Lars Eller. Doesn't really matter. Their power play is poopers. But the thing is, like, the Islanders' penalty kill sucks. But, like, the Pittsburgh power play, when Jake Gensel was healthy, sucked. And now he's out. And he's probably one of the players that they run the power play through. So, like, I get why Pittsburgh 1 has a 12.5% top 2 stack. They're 17-8 and they're fully correlated. And, the Islanders penalty kill kind of sucks. But, like, I don't love it. You know what I mean? Like, Jake Gensel is a big player on that line. Now, moving Raquel up there is going to help them defensively. But, like, I don't know, man. 11.8% projected ownership at 17-8. I'd rather just go play the Rangers top line. The second line doesn't really do too much for me either, and they're pretty heavily negatively leveraged. Like, there's no one on the top power play unit there with Malkin, O'Connor, Phillips. You'd play him for 5-on-5, and it's a decent 5-on-5 matchup. But, like, this is Matthew Phillips' like third game with Pittsburgh. I'd rather go play that third line, Eller, Puustinen, and Riley Smith. But they're even more negatively leveraged. So, like, I don't know. I don't really love Pitt here. If anything, I'd take a stab on Pitt 1. But again, like, I don't love them in this matchup. Islanders top line is a bit interesting. They're cheaper than the Pittsburgh top line by $600. They're coming in with half the ownership. You get Barzal and Horvat on the top power play. Now, Pittsburgh's penalty kill is pretty good. They are starting Nedeljkovic tonight, but they are a pretty good 5-on-5 line as well. So I think both top lines are in play for me. I just don't love it from a 1-3 lineup perspective.
Yeah, I don't think this is the same Islanders team as it was under Lane Lambert. Like, it's only been 9 games under Patrick Waugh, and you definitely don't want to read like all that much into 9 games. But those 9 games for the Islanders, third lowest expected goals against in the league. We brought that up. I think it was on Saturday's show, maybe. And it's not like it was it's been an easy schedule for them. Like, okay, there was Montreal in there, and Tampa Bay's not the greatest, but Dallas, Vegas, Florida, Toronto, Seattle, and the New York Rangers besides that, like that's a pretty bad schedule. And to have the second lowest expected goals against, or third lowest, at 5-on-5 is pretty good. Like second fewest goals against at 5-on-5 as well. So it's not like the goalies have been bad at 5-on-5. Like the goalies aren't letting in anything either. And this was an Islanders team once upon a time in fairly recent memory that was really, really good defensively. It just seems like everything fell apart under Lane Lambert over basically the last calendar year. Maybe this is a return to form for them. And here's the problem is there are a couple games there recently under Patrick Waugh where the Islanders, they gave up 5 to Calgary, I think, and then 6 to your Rangers. But those 11 goals against, one of them was an empty net. So 10 goals against, 4 of them were on the penalty kill, right, against the opposing power play. If Pittsburgh can't get there on the power play because they suck so much with it, and the Islanders are that much better at 5-on-5, and Pittsburgh doesn't have Jake Gensel, it's like how much offensive upside is there really? And again, you need a bigger sample than 9 games, but it just worries me because it's starting to mirror the Islanders team of a couple of years ago, which was basically this same lineup, plus Pierre Engvall and Bo Horvat. So I'm not super excited about playing the Penguins. Like if that Penguins lineup, the top line comes in at double digits and I get beat by it, I'll live with that. That's fine. But the other problem is Crosby's lines numbers without Gensel over the last couple seasons, or this season, just in particular, 2.3 expected goals for per 60 without Gensel in 85 minutes. That's below league. That's below league average. Going back to last season, they're a little bit better, but if you add in last season, we're up to 160-minute sample, 2.7 expected goals for per 60 minutes. That's a little bit above league average. Like this is one of the best 5-on-5 lines in the NHL this season, going all the way down to a little bit above league average. And it's like, I don't think Rickard Rakell is going to turn around. Like, yeah, he can help them defensively, like you said, but he's not going to replace Jake Gensel in any way, shape, or form offensively. So if the 5-on-5 matchup is bad because of the new coach and the power play matchup is bad because the Pittsburgh power play just is really if you're at a point where you're putting Lars Eller on the power play, it's over. Like it's just game over. I'm sorry. So I have no interest in the Penguins. If you want a one-off guys, I have no problem with that. Really, even Crosby, I think he's fine to one-off. I have no interest in stacking Pittsburgh. I'm a little bit more interested in stacking the Islanders. Horvat, Barzal, and Lee, 3.3 expected goals per 60 under Patrick Waugh. There are a lot of nights where Barzal and Horvat are skating 22, 23 minutes. Problem is Pittsburgh doesn't take a lot of penalties, and they have a good penalty kill on top of that. So they'd have to do it all at 5-on-5. I think they're playable because that 5.7% ownership is perfectly okay in this particular matchup. But honestly, I'm going to say overall, this is a game where I'm just more interested in taking some one-off guys. I think Matt Barzal is fine as a one-off. He plays a lot of minutes. So is Bo Horvat. Brock Nelson, perfectly fine as a one-off. Kyle Palmieri's been on a little bit of a heater. He's okay to one-off. I just don't have any real interest in full stacking anything in this game because I think it's just a bad power play matchup for both sides. And both sides are kind of fine at 5-on-5 defensively. So to me, that it just looks like a low-scoring game where you're hoping you can get a goal and a shot bonus from one of the wingers or something like that.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. Just want to make sure I wasn't muted. If you're looking to take your game to the next level, you can click the link in the chat to get access to the best NHL data and tools in the industry. You get access to player and ownership projections, top stacks tools, line combinations, and the most important thing, in my opinion, it's the Discord, which you do need a membership now to be a part of it. They purged out the people who didn't have a membership. So you need a membership to get in there. We show the tools a bunch on the show, but if you want access to them 24/7, click that link, get in there, and say you came from the show. Clayton will read you the rules. I'm not going to kink shame him, but he does like to see your hands. New Jersey Devils with a 3.6 total. Heading into Washington, the Capitals have a 2.9 total. Jonas Siegenthaler was activated for the Devils. That is a huge boost on the blue line defensively. They need all the help they can get. He's one of their best defensive defensemen. Doesn't change the fact that their goalies are still atrocious. It does help that maybe the shot suppression will come down a little bit. That being said, I am a notorious Washington one-fader, Strome, Ovechkin, Oshie. They are negatively leveraged. They are 15-6. I'd rather find the extra $500 and go play Rangers 1. That could be a homer take. But if you want to play them, I always say this, and it's important because a lot of people have tickets for bigger GPPs that they normally don't play. Play your guys. If you love this line, play your fucking guys. I don't care what the ownership is. If the line is 23% owned, don't fade them because of the ownership. There's plenty of ways to get different, right? You will hate yourself if you fade them because of ownership and they go off, rather than you play them because they're your guys and they don't do shit. Like you can live with yourself that way. I would, just throw myself down a flight of stairs if I faded someone because of ownership. Play your guys. That's my point. But I'm fading the shit out of Washington 1. I don't like them. It just is what it is. Now, we were talking about filler lines that are playable, and Cliffy mentioned Florida 3, but they were wildly negative leverage at 6%. This Mantha McMichael Protoss line, 10K to full stack, only 0.6% projected ownership, right? Once you get past the Nico Hischier line, and that line isn't even great defensively, you're probably not going to see the Siegenthaler pair. You're going to see the depth in New Jersey, and they are terrible. The goaltending has been atrocious. McMichael's playmaking, and the rush, off the rush, he's excellent. I think I like Washington 2 as a filler line. I like them. You want a one-off Pacioretty here? That's fine. You want a two-man with Sonny Milano? Fine. Like Michael Scarbosa, if he beats me tonight, like I'll go, I'll start calling him Captain Barbosa or whatever. I don't care. So Washington 2 for me. On the Devils side, not a great power play matchup. Washington does have a pretty good penalty kill. So I think I would 5v5 stack here. The Jack Hughes lines comes in at 13.4% projected. The Nico Hischier line coming in at 11.6% projected. I'm not even hyperbole here. The Nico Hischier line has been playing out of their mind. I prefer them to the Jack Hughes line. Now, if you want to play the Jack Hughes line, by all means, you can play them. But if you put a gun to my head and say you need to play one of these two New Jersey lines in single entry tonight, I'm playing the Hischier line. So NJ1, Washington 2 for me.
Yeah, I'll start on the New Jersey side because I wrote up Nico Hischier in the picks article. Like it honestly is absolutely insane what this line is doing. In 230 minutes together, 38.2 shots per 60 minutes, 4.3 expected goals per 60, 5.2 actual goals per 60 minutes. Hischier's last 10 games, he has 13 points, 3.3 shots per game. For anybody that's coming over from the NBA, 4.3 expected goals and 5.2 actual goals over a sample of 230 minutes. Like we just mentioned how the Pittsburgh top line with Gensel had been one of the best 5-on-5 lines this season. Like that's about what they would be putting up. The Edmonton top line, the old one anyway, that they used for a couple months, which was one of the best in the league, that's about what they would put up. Like this is legitimately like top of the NHL type of 5-on-5 performance, and it's not just 80 minutes or 100 minutes. Like at 23 minutes, or 230 minutes, sorry, you're looking 20 games worth, like a quarter of the season. Like that's at a certain point, it's not a small sample anymore. That New Jersey top line has been very, very, very good, and this Washington team is very, very, very bad. What I mentioned in that article, going back to Christmas, the Capitals are 31st by expected goals against at 5-on-5, 25th by actual goals against, 25th by goals against on the penalty kill as well. So the PK even starting to let Washington down a little bit. That was the one thing that they were good at defensively in the first half of the season. Like the last couple months, it's been getting a lot worse. That New Jersey line is coming in over leveraged, 11.6% against 8.1% top two stack. But 8.1% top two stack, and they come in at 11-12%. Like, that is not a concern whatsoever. The one concern would be that they probably see quite a bit of that Washington fourth line with Nick Dowd there. Nick Dowd is a good shutdown center. He's got Tom Wilson next to him, though, and like Tom Wilson's not a good shutdown player. So, like, I do like New Jersey one here as well. Bratt, Hischier, and Palat. Blatt good in the defensive zone, being able to get the pucks up to the forwards. Jesper Bratt has one of the highest scoring chance assist rates in the league this season. Like, I'm talking up, like, he's up there with like Connor McDavid and Nathan McKinnon and those guys. Like, he is absolutely elite. So I really do like New Jersey one here. There's no matchup on the Washington side that I'm really worried about, even with Nick Dowd. So New Jersey one, like you said, if you want to go to New Jersey two, that's fine. Some reason, though, we talked about this in the Discord. I can't remember if it was yesterday or on the weekend, about how Jack Hughes really hasn't been scoring that much at 5-on-5, like, at all.
He's Dougie.
But particularly away from Dougie Hamilton, and Hamilton's still not back. And Jonas Siegenthaler, as good as he is defensively, he's not a great puck mover. Like, that's not a guy that will help a lot on offense. So New Jersey one. New Jersey three is kind of interesting. Lazar and Mercer, pretty good expected goals numbers together this season. Coming in with over-leveraged, I would hate to leave Timo Meier off, because Timo Meier still is capable of big games. But that is kind of one of those third lines where I'd have a little bit of interest, especially in an easy matchup like this against Washington. On the Washington side, I agree with you. I'm not going to, like, if I were to play an over-leveraged line in this game, it's New Jersey one and not Washington one. Like, I'll just put it that way. It is the McMichael line I would have more interest in. 2.9 expected goals for and 275 minutes together. And again, that's another big sample. None of the guys are on the top power play unit, but the top power play unit typically has been that great. New Jersey actually has a good penalty kill. So McMichael and Mantha and Protas, I think, make a nice filler stack. As you said, not coming in with any ownership either. If you want to just kind of two-man them, with Colorado or whatever, I think that's perfectly fine. But it is New Jersey one I like in this game, and it's not even close.
Agreed. Minnesota Wild, 2.6 total. Heading into Winnipeg, the Jets have a 3 total. They both played yesterday, right? Yeah. Minnesota's game was wild. Oh, yeah, that's right. Winnipeg got a natural hat in 5 minutes from Sean Monahan and blew it. That's right. So Rick Bowness said there are going to be lineup changes tonight, and that's concerning because this is a good power play spot, especially with Marc-Andre Fleury probably going tonight. So I think you can just prioritize the power play guys and wait to see in warm-ups, and like Velarde, Scheifele, and Connor are the guys you want to prioritize. Gabriel Velarde under 5K on DraftKings is a nice little one-off as well. So I think, not knowing the lines, I still think you can one-off Velarde. I would, if you are considering stacking Winnipeg, just be aware of the lines. I think, listen, Hellebuyck went yesterday. It's Laurent Brossoit. He is a good backup. I know he was chalked the last time he started and he got absolutely nuked, but he has a .920 save percentage. He has goals saved above his expected. He's a good goalie. I still think he can go back to Minnesota one here. They're coming off like everyone had at least a 5-point game and 2 hat tricks. Like, if you're expecting that tonight, you can just go back to like playing LOL at 4 a.m. Like, it's not going to happen. But like, they are still very capable of putting up a big game. Where you take advantage of the Jets is on the penalty kill. It is getting better. It isn't Hellebuyck, so I think there is merit to going back to Minnesota one here. But I would have a bit of pause stacking Winnipeg here tonight until I knew for sure what the lines were going to be.
Yeah, I see. This is one of those things where, like, the coach says, "Oh, there could be some lineup changes," and it's the number 6 defenseman and one guy on the 4th line. Like, that's what kind of worries me, is that we'd worry about lineup changes for nothing. Because one of the writers, I think it was Murat Ates, was saying maybe last week, like, they're pretty committed to making Gabriel Velarde work on the top line because they think that would give them like an elite line at both ends of the ice. And that Winnipeg top line, does have pretty good numbers together in a small sample. Now, the problem is like Scheifele and Connor and Velarde have all been hurt for extended, somewhat extended periods this season. But what I write about in the article is 75 minutes together, not a big sample, 3.1 expected goals, 4.1 actual goals. But if you look at Velarde's numbers with just Scheifele, I think Nikolai Ehlers was the third guy on that line, they're similarly high offensively. So I'm willing to bet that Scheifele, Velarde, Kyle Connor is a good 5-on-5 line. And with the way Winnipeg runs their lines when they're at home, they won't see a lot of Joel Eriksson and Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Boldy. And that's the line that you don't want to play against because they are very good at 5-on-5. 1.9 expected, 2.1 expected goals against since John Hines got hired as a coach. That's way, way better than league average. So they're going to avoid that matchup. And as you said, like it's a good power play matchup. Now, the Winnipeg power play has generally struggled this season, but again, Connor, Scheifele, and Velarde were all like they missed a combined 42 games this season. I think Velarde's the most at 20, and then the other guys is like 16 and 6 or something like that. But adding Sean Monahan made a big difference for the Montreal power play in the position that he was in, playing in the middle of the ice. Like he is a smart player, good with his hands, and we saw him score one of those goals like that yesterday, where he just kind of outsmarted the penalty kill and basically found himself with an open net. Now, if this power play is better for Winnipeg, this is a line that's going to be a lot more expensive very soon, and this is a good power play matchup. We saw, I think Vancouver got 2 yesterday. The Minnesota penalty kill, even though it's improved, has been average at best, and they're taking more minor penalties than the league average over the last couple months. So, a highly penalized team that is averaged at best on the PK going up against Winnipeg, and Minnesota's on the road. I do kind of like Winnipeg one, going back to Winnipeg one here, 1% ownership at 18,800. That's perfectly fine with me. Kyle Connor kind of going through it a little bit, 32 shot, but he has 32 shots in his last 10 games. So at least he's shooting the puck quite a bit. I do like Winnipeg one here. As for the rest, I'm going to be honest, it feels hard to play Winnipeg 2 right now just because I think Nikolai Ehlers, I think Perfidi got 10 minutes in that last game and Ehlers got 12. Like that's about where they're at right now, is that they're getting third line, sometimes fourth line minutes, despite how well that they're playing. So I think, a one-off Sean Monahan because of his power play role or whatever is fine. Like a one-off Ehlers because he can shoot a lot even in low minutes is fine. But I don't know about full stacking. I'd be more interested in full stacking the third line, honestly. That third line for Winnipeg, 3.3 expected goals for, 1.9 against per 60 minutes and 150 minutes since January 1st. Like they've been pretty good. I know they're going to match up against Joel Eriksson, but I think it's a case where, like, if you want a one-off Nino Niederreiter, Adam Lowry, I think that's perfectly fine to help you fit in your power play stacks elsewhere. But it is Winnipeg one that I like best. I'm not going back to the Minnesota well. I did like them yesterday. Obviously, I had no idea that the top line would combine for 17 points and 7 goals. But it's a much tougher matchup going into Winnipeg. Winnipeg doesn't take a lot of penalties. 1, the penalty kill has been getting better. For 2, despite yesterday. That Winnipeg third line has been a good shutdown line. For 3. So I think there are expensive lines that I would like to play tonight. Florida is definitely one of them. I would rather play Florida than Minnesota here. So not so high on Minnesota 1. I think Minnesota 2 is fine as a filler. Zuccarello, Rossi, Johansson. Rossi got moved down to the 4th line during the game yesterday, but he was back. He's expected to be back on the 2nd line. We'll see what happens. But I think this is a Winnipeg game, and Winnipeg 1 in particular for me.
Yep. Vancouver Canucks with a 3 total heading into Colorado. The Avalanche have a 3.5 total. Once again, nobody playing the Canucks. It's a conundrum that they've had all season. Everyone playing Colorado 2, apparently. Lekkinen and Colton Wood, one of the more negatively leveraged lines on the night at 9.1% projected. McKinnon, Rantanen, and Drouin, 27.4% top 2 stack, 12.1% projected ownership. They're 22-3. I know they just gave up 468 goals last night, but like that was Casey DeSmith, and they hung him out to dry. Thatcher Demko is an elite goalie. I still think Colorado 1 is a good play here because they're matchup proof. Like they are an elite line, even with Drew End there. They're fully correlated. I don't think you have to prioritize them. Like sometimes, like if this was like Colorado going into, like Nashville or not Nashville, like Arizona, something like that, and they're 12%, you're like, wow, this is an elite power play spot. Got to smash them. It's a decent power play spot, but I'm a bit mum on Colorado 1, right? They're a great play all the time. It's just like, do I want to spend up for them tonight? I'm leaning towards no. If you want to play them, I'll never tell you no. The second line is a bit ridiculous, that ownership. Like, if you want to one-off Lehkonen for the power play, I think that's fine. Like, I don't know why. I guess he's hurt, right? Logan O'Connor, because Colton and Wood haven't been great together. I don't love full stacking that line. I think one-offing Lehkonen's fine. On the Vancouver side, teams have been sending out top comp against JT Besser. I think, you want to go back to them for the power play. Colorado takes a boatload of penalties. I think that's fine. They're coming in under 1%, and that's why I do it. I think that's more of an MME thing. I do have a little bit more interest in Elias Pettersson, Lindholm, Hoglander, 16-4, 2% projected ownership. But again, outside of Colorado 1 and maybe a Lehkonen one-off, this feels kind of like an MME game for me.
Yeah, here's the case for playing Colorado 1 is, Vancouver has generally been a very good defensive team, but one problem Vancouver's been running into, and they ran into that yesterday, is taking too many penalties. They're the fourth most penalized team in the league going back to Christmas. Meanwhile, in that same span going back to Christmas, Colorado is drawing the second most minor penalties. So Vancouver's on a road back-to-back here. Colorado is rested at home. Vancouver's been taking a ton of penalties, and Colorado's been drawing a lot of power plays. That is, I don't care what goalie is in net. I don't care who the penalty kill is. Basically, other than Carolina, there's no one that can withstand taking 5 or 6 penalties in Colorado tonight on a road back-to-back. So I think there is merit to playing Colorado 1 for that reason, because they should. I assume they're going to get a lot of power play time here tonight. The power play has been like excellent all season, even with injuries in and out. Just at 5-on-5, the top line has been excellent. And, there are times where they don't generate as many shots, but that hasn't been the case lately. Their last 15 games, 3.8 expected goals, 4.5 actual goals per 60. Nathan McKinnon, 50 shots in his last 10 games. I think Colorado 1 is perfectly fine to play here, but where there are 3 expensive lines, we just talked about Minnesota, we talked about Florida earlier in the slate, and then Colorado here. Like Colorado and Florida coming in at roughly the same ownership, Florida a little bit cheaper. I would probably rather play Florida at home to Ottawa, with Ottawa on a back-to-back, than Colorado at home against Vancouver, with Vancouver on the back-to-back, just because Ottawa's a mess defensively. That's just kind of what it is. Vancouver, yesterday aside, typically is not. But I think there is still a pretty strong case to play Colorado just because it is such a good power play spot here. I just think for myself personally, I would rather play Florida here tonight. On the Vancouver side, I agree with you on the JT Miller line. I think they're playable again here. They've been very, very good with Pia Suter there. They're up to 3.6 expected goals for, 6.5 actual goals for in 110 minutes together. That is really, really productive. Colorado does take a lot of penalties. They're just behind Vancouver in that sense. Vancouver above average by drawing power plays. They're probably going to see the McKinnon matchup, and McKinnon their line is a line that likes to trade chances back and forth. They just hope that they get the better end of them, but that could end up going well for Miller, Besser, and Suter. Almost no ownership on them either, 0.7%. I would personally rather play them than the Pettersson line, but it is Colorado 1 that I like best in this game, even factoring in like higher ownership and much higher price.
Agreed. Nashville Predators with a 2.8 total heading into Vegas. The Golden Knights have a 3.1. Vegas played last night. They shut out the Sharks. The goals weren't correlated or great or anything, but looks like Shea Theodore will be back tonight. That will boost the blue line offensively. Defensively remains to be seen. Nashville won, fully correlated on the power play, coming in with positive leverage, 18-1. I like them. I just like them. It's a good power play spot. They've been pretty good 5-on-5 all season. Positive leverage. Why not? The depth of Nashville, good luck trying to figure out those lines. You know what I mean? Like they switch in-game every game, so I'm out on Nashville depth. On the Vegas side, like this is a good power play spot, and I'll let you touch on, the Vegas power play, but like getting Shea Theodore back will obviously be a boost, but it's not going to be the boost as big of a boost as you think without Eichel. So I guess you could do like a Marchessault Theodore and go about your day. But if I was going to stack a line, it would probably be that Marchessault line. But Vegas is an MME target for me.
Yeah, I don't really have a ton of interest in stacking Vegas here. Like getting Shea Theodore back, I think is really big for them. Don't get me wrong. But you and I were talking before the show about the Vegas power play. Like since Jack Eichel got hurt, Vegas has had one of the worst power plays in the league. And if you look back over the last couple seasons, with Eichel and Stone on the power play, it doesn't really matter which defenseman is there, whether it's Theodore, whether it's Pietrangelo. I think Alec Martinez even got some time. Whatever. It hasn't mattered. They generate roughly the same amount of shots and roughly the same amount of goals. But if you take Eichel off the power play, the goals and the shots plummet. I think Eichel is much more important to this team's success on the power play than Shea Theodore is. I think Theodore will help them a lot at 5-on-5, which is definitely something that they need. I just don't know if it'll help them that much on the power play. Vegas doesn't draw a lot of power play opportunities anyway. They're under 3 minor penalties drawn per game going back to Christmas. Nashville penalty kill, like all their problems are related to UC Saros' penalty save percentage. So as long as Saros doesn't fall on his face, like there's just not a lot that I really like from the Vegas side in this matchup. I would probably prefer to play Stone, Carlson, and Stevenson just for the power play correlation in case they do pop a goal. And it's only 2.5% ownership. Like it's not that bad. 2.5% ownership, 2.8 top 2 stack percentage. So that would be the Vegas line that I would go to. But I do have more interest in the Nashville side. It is Nashville 1. There's no real matchup on the Vegas side that I'm worried about at 5-on-5. And the penalty kill has been very, very, very bad, at least relative to what we'd expect from Vegas. It's been average at best, and that over the last 7 weeks. And that rating average is about the best that you can say for them. So I do have a little bit of interest here in Nashville. They're coming in with low ownership as well, 5%. Here's the problem for me with playing Nashville tonight is that they're in the same price range as Winnipeg, and Winnipeg is coming in at 1% ownership against Nashville's 5%. Like that's basically it, despite the top 2 percentage not being that much higher. So I think I would still prefer to play Winnipeg in this price range, but my favorite line in this game is Nashville. Like you said, Shea Theodore will help them out more offensively than he will defensively.
Columbus Blue Jackets with a 2.6 total heading into Los Angeles. Our Kings have a 3.9 total. I went, while you were talking about Chandler Stevenson, my mind went to blank. So I went to go look for Kings morning skate. Couldn't find any lines other than Talbot is the first goalie off. So they're probably going to go back to Kempe, Fiala, Kopitar, Arvidsson, Moore, Deneau, and then Byfield, Dubois, Laferriere, unless they, someone comes out with lines. That's what I'm expecting. Lots of ownership on all the LA lines. LA 3, 10.7% projected. LA 2, the Deneau line, 17.1% projected. LA 1, 8.1% projected. Obviously, it's a good matchup. I don't really know what I want to do. Like, obviously, if it's Deneau, Moore, and Arvidsson, that's a line that has just been amazing for years. So I maybe just go to them. I don't want to play almost 11% third line. You know what I mean? And with Fiala, Kempe, and Kopitar on the top line, if it is them, it's probably going to be a bit leaky defensively. Like, you can play them offensively, obviously, and they're fully correlated on the power play, but Kings run split units. So I think LA2 would be my favorite, then LA1, and then LA3 if you need a filler. On the Columbus side, not too much interest there, but if they do go back to Kopitar, Fiala, Kempe, it's not going to be the best defensive line. So it would give me a little bit of interest in Jenner, Gaudreau, Roslovic, which is a fully correlated line. It could be. They are coming in a bit negatively leveraged. I don't know if I want to stay up until the wee hours of the morning relying on Columbus in my single entry, but they are under 14K on DraftKings. So, I would give it some thought.
Yeah. I'll start with the Columbus side because that top line of Gaudreau, Jenner, and Roslovic has not been that bad offensively. In fact, they've been pretty good. 110 minutes together, 3.5 expected goals, 4.8 actual goals per 60 minutes. And if you look at the Kings top line in 115 minutes without Quentin Byfield, 2.6 expected goals against, that's about league average, right? That's not a brutal matchup for Columbus. And the Los Angeles goaltending has been a problem for them for like a month now. So I'm not stacking Columbus personally. Like, I usually play single entry. I'm definitely not stacking Columbus, but 3.3% top two against 5.7% ownership, I think is fine. I think the 5-on-5 matchup could be better than expected. I just don't think this is a spot where I'm necessarily stacking Columbus. Like, I think a one-off Jenner makes sense. A one-off Kirill Marchenko or Dmitry Voronkov, like those types of things. Like, Voronkov is a guy that lives around the net. He can bang in a goal and get a goal for cheap in DFS. I just don't know if they're going to end up scoring enough because the Kings are still a pretty good 5-on-5 team, still a pretty good penalty kill, though a lot of that is related to goaltending. It is the Kings side that I like best. I wrote up Kings too, assuming Fiala was there. If Fiala isn't going to be there, I like the Kings top line better because the Kings top line, if it is Kempe, Kopitar, and Fiala, would be perfectly correlated on the power play. The Columbus penalty kill has been the worst in the league going back to Christmas, and it's been just as bad since Boone Jenner returned. They're not coming in with a tremendous amount of ownership, considering it's a high total, positively leveraged per the top stacks tool. Kings 1 I like best in this game by a mile. I think Kings 3, if you want to take like a Byfield Dubois 2-man or Dubois Laferriere 2-man or something like that, just to fit in your expensive power play stacks elsewhere, is fine. But it's Kings 1 and Columbus 1, I guess, that I like best. But I think on the Columbus side, it's probably just taking one-offs.
Yeah, that is 8 games. 8 good games. Let's talk about some defensemen here, shall we? We shall. Let me just load it up. I was not prepared. Here we go. Top of the board, Cale Makar, 8,200. He's always in play. Roman Josi, 7,300. This feels like a Roman Josi slate. This is a good power play matchup for him. I like him at the top of the board. After that, I think, if you want to play Werenski, that's fine. You want to play Shea Theodore, that's fine. You know what I mean? Just in the top end, it just feels like Dougie Hamilton or Makar, really, for me. Who else do you like him?
Well, Dougie Hamilton's out until
what did I say? Why did I say Dougie Hamilton?
I don't know where that came from, man. Honestly, because it's not like there's another expensive New Jersey Devils defenseman. But anyways, yeah, the only two that pop for me are Makar and Josi. I wrote up Makar because even though he's on a 5-game pointless streak, he still averaged double-digit DraftKings points because he's putting up a lot more peripherals, shots, and blocks than he did last year. And I don't think it's that bad. It's a 3.5 total for Colorado. So I do, obviously like Makar and Josi. Like, they are 1-2 in the projections. They're just 1-2 by mine as well. And they're the only 2 expensive guys I really have interest in. Brandon Montour, I think it's a pretty good spot for Florida. 3-point game, I think, in his last game out. He's due for some big-time positive regression over the final 30 games of the season or 25 games or whatever. So like Montour, Aaron Ekblad for kind of the same reason in Florida. Adam Fox, like, he's a guy that probably needs 3 points to get there in DFS, but the Dallas penalty kill has been bad enough, and the range of power play is usually good enough where he can do it. So don't mind Fox for tournaments in the mid-price range. Cheap guys, even with Haskin back, I still like Esa Lindell here. Vladislav Gavrikov, if you like revenge narratives, Gavrikov against Columbus here tonight. Adam Pelech for the Islanders, I think, is one of the cheap defenseman I like the most. He's been getting reasonable amounts of ice time, over 20 minutes of late, likes to block shots. Artem Zoo, your boy the Zoo from Ottawa. He might have to block a lot of shots here as well. And if you want to go super cheap, Mikkola, $2,900 from Florida, and Zadorov, $2,500 from Vancouver.
Yeah. I see someone mentioning Brandt Clark. He has 4,100 on DraftKings, and he barely gets over 13 minutes. So just buyer beware.
That's kind of the problem.
Yeah. Let's talk about some goalies. Top of the board, Sergei Bobrovsky, then Cam Talbot, Aiden Hill, Georgiev, Nedeljkovic, Brossois. That's the 8K range. I don't live up in the 8K range, but for me, it would probably be Aiden Hill if I was living in that range. I think Bobrovsky makes some sense as well, but at that price, you really need some stuff there. I don't mind going to Igor Shesterkin here. If he sucks, he sucks. Like, sue me. He has upside here. For the cheap guys, Sorokin sticks out like a sore thumb. He is going to be pretty chalky. If you want to ride some lightning, fasten your seatbelts, play some Thatcher Demko, go for it. I think UC Saros also sticks out.
Yeah, there's upside with Igor Shesterkin here, but it's for the Dallas Stars. It's not for Igor Shesterkin. I wrote up UC Saros in the picks article today. Vegas just doesn't draw power plays, and they don't generate a lot on the power play. So it could be a lot of 5-on-5 shots for Saros, which is good. Ilya Sorokin, I think, is probably the best play on the board. I hate saying best play for goalie because no goalie is ever best play. Like, they all suck. I hope everybody kind of realizes that. It's kind of like being forced. It's like being forced to roster a catcher in MLB if the catcher was at least like 5K every single game. But Sorokin, Pittsburgh, bad power play. Again, it's the same thing as with Saros. Probably should see a lot of 5-on-5 shots. The expensive goalie I like is Elvis Merzlikins. Or not Merzlikins. He's cheap. I like Merzlikins for cheap as well because the Kings do have trouble scoring at 5-on-5. And if the Columbus power penalty kill doesn't fall apart, he could be fine. So don't mind Merzlikins for cheap. But the expensive goalie I like is Aiden Hill. So it's both goalies in the Nashville-Vegas game.
Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
Carter Verhaeghe. Wrote him up in the article. Good matchup, Carter Verhaeghe.
Going Gabriel Velarde. I'm sticking it to the flow chart. Suck on that chart. And I'm a mess. Anyway, we will be back tomorrow. There's a 5-game slate, still NBA All-Star break, so there should be good GPP. So we will be back tomorrow. We'll be on Twitter. We'll be in the Discord. Hop in the Discord. Say what's up. Hopefully you guys win some money. Hopefully we win some money. Hopefully we're talking about winning money tomorrow. And good luck, everybody.
Good luck tonight, everyone.